women entrepreneurs shaping the future of India. I just want to give all of you a bit of a background of the G20 and the G20 Empower. So as all of you are aware, India has assumed the G20 presidency from December 2022 till the end of this year. And under the G20 framework, the G20 Alliance for the Empowerment and Progression of Women's Economic Representation, which is the G20 Empower, was launched during the G20 Osaka Summit in 2019. And this aims to accelerate women's leadership and empowerment in the private sector by leveraging its unique alliance among business leaders and governments across the G20 countries. India's G20 presidency theme of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, One Earth, One Family, One Future, really stresses upon the need for an inclusive, ambitious, decisive, and action-oriented approach towards our common future in which women's empowerment and women-led development are key aspects. Under the G20 presidency, India will be taking forward the cause of women's empowerment and women-led development based on a life cycle continuum approach, where issues of health, education, and economic and social empowerment will be addressed. Under G20 Empower, we are very honored that FICCI is the official secretariat, and this is chaired by Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, who is the past president of FICCI, and she is also the joint managing director of Apollo Hospitals, and she's the official India chair for the G20 Empower. And we are working closely with the Ministry of Women and Child Development in taking this agenda forward. And there are 3 priority issues under the G20 Empower, which has been identified: women's entrepreneurship, a win-win for equity and economy; education, the game-changing pathway to women's empowerment; third theme being creating a partnership for promoting women's leadership at the grassroots; and digital inclusion, which cuts across all these 3 priority issues. There are 3 large events: the inception meeting happening in Agra on 11th and 12th of February, followed by the second event happening in Tiruvananthapuram on 4th and 5th of April, followed by 1st and 2nd of June at either Bhopal or Indore. So these are these 3 large events that's happening where we would want people to participate, listen to global speakers, and of course the government. I'm just mentioning this for everybody's information. And I also want to say that other than this, the engagement, the government of India is also keen that the citizens of India from all walks of life are invited and engaged in relevant G20 meetings. Hence the Jan Bhagidari events that are planned through the year with the kickstart starting today. With that, I think I would really like to very warmly welcome our 3 speakers today. Ms. Neha Arora, who is the founder of Planet Able. Welcome, Neha. Ms. Tamanna Sharma, who is the founder and director, Earthlink First Private Limited. And of course, Ms. Chaya Nanjappa, who is the founder of Nectar Fresh in Naman. And with great pleasure, I also welcome our esteemed moderator, Dr. Vinita Datta Ray. And I have the pleasure of introducing Vinita, and Vinita will then, of course, introduce all our speakers with their backgrounds. So Vinita is a strategy, innovation, and a CSR professor at BIMTech, and convener of the North India chapter of PRIME, a UN organization for responsible management education. Vinita has written several research articles and cases that cross-cut social and corporate concerns of inclusion, sustainability, and business ethics. Her book, Demonstrating Responsible Business, Bloomsbury 2019, is the essence of Indian CSR and sustainability practices. In its writing, the book has benefited from her experiences of CSR policy development and corporate practices in India for almost 2 decades, having worked in the domain with organizations like the British Council, IICA, FICCI, NHRDN, UNGCI, and IMA, amongst others. Vinita has facilitated and led training, multi-stakeholder dialoguing, building advocacy, and networking of CSR professionals, non-profits, and educators nationally and internationally. With those words, I will hand over to our very able moderator, Dr. Vinita Datta Roy. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Usha. Uma, thank you so much. Thank you. And just like always, it's such a pleasure to be amongst the FICCI team. And of course, I have met Chaya earlier in one of our conferences. And I again, very warmly welcome all of you, our esteemed speakers for the day today. Thank you, Uma, for the for setting the context. And I'd like to just say that we are all very aware that across the world, not only just in India, we see that the women-led businesses, there is a distinct gender gap there. And the women-led businesses are overwhelmingly small or micro enterprises. So that's one of the peculiarities with women in businesses. Although much of this is attributed to the fact that women have had not an equal footing, and they've had not a good, not a level playing field in businesses. So apart from the businesses that come with the challenges of a small enterprise, also the women face, multitude of other challenges. And so the entrepreneurial activity that we see across the world is pretty skewed in terms of the gender gap. Now, with the Sustainable Development Goals, which emphasize SDG 5, gender equality, and also economic growth, which is SDG 8, we are at a very opportune time taking up this agenda of women empowerment, gender equality, and especially with until and unless women lead and hold businesses, we see them not mainstreaming into the society. So with that, this is such a pleasure that we have three very successful stories today in the form of Nectar Fresh, in the form of Planet Abled, and also Tamanna's venture. So what we will do is we will first, and this session particularly for all our audience is a source of inspiration. So we would first like to in detail know their story, and along with that, and I'm just parking the questions right up. So once we've taken the stories, we would like to know from the doers here, the ones who've already made a change, as to what unique challenges. I'm sure there are multitude of challenges, but what unique challenges in their domains or in their spheres of influences did they encounter? And number three, what are the pitfalls? Today we see that that especially in India, we have an entrepreneurial flair where men and women alike, they are wanting to be entrepreneurs, and this is in much driven by the government's agenda as well. So and there is a lot of encouragement for entrepreneurs, and the ecosystem is very well facilitated there. So we would like to know from our speakers, what are those pitfalls that the entrepreneurs who are wanting to take up ventures should be cautious against? And thirdly, and not lastly, the message in terms of how, I'm sure Neha, Tamanna, and Chaya must have, come through a lot of hurdles, but having lived that, they would certainly have some message for the entrepreneurs of today to, steer clear of some of the challenges or steer clear of some of the obstacles, right away. So those are the three main, things that we would like to discuss. And of course, then we open our, forum to questions. But before we begin, I have the, proud privilege to introduce all our speakers. So as I take up, the speaker, one by one, I will keep introducing and also request you to take up the first question, which is if you could give us more insights into your stories. So introducing, not in any particular order, this is in terms of my screen. So I can see Neha there first, So I will introduce Neha. Neha Arora, she is an engineer by qualification and has a corporate experience of over a decade. She is the founder of Planet Abled, a globally recognized and awarded inclusive travel brand promoting accessible and inclusive travel for persons with disabilities and the elderly. Not being able to experience holidays herself as a child, uh, because of her parents, because of her parents who are her father is blind and her mother is a wheelchair user. So this experience gives Neha insights to promote the accessible and inclusive travel share that she has built as a business. And it also gives her perspective into the needs of people with disabilities. Planet Abled is a decorated service provider with prestigious and coveted awards nationally and internationally, such as the National Award in Tourism, that is in India and at the United Nations, London, and Universal Design Award. Neha, awarded as the most influential leaders in the tourism industry, is a Global Good Fund Fellow, USA, and has marked her presence at global platforms like ITB Berlin, Sustainable Tourism Council, International Congress on Tourism and Technology, TEDx, and Women Economic Forum, amongst others. She has been hailed on many reputed platforms as an exceptional woman of excellence and a rising star. This is still a smaller version of her achievements, and I'm sure with her story she would like to highlight a few more. So over to you, Neha. Can we have your story?
Thank you so much, Vinita, for such a kind and wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. So I mean, I think you covered the starting bit of it, why I started the company. And Planet Able is certainly not my first venture.
Okay.
Along with my corporate job, I was dabbling into stuff because I like doing tinkering with stuff. But what happened was, like you mentioned, I never went for a holiday, and my parents, who are now in their 70s and 80s, didn't go for a holiday until a few years ago. And so when I started earning, the first thing I did was to save money and plan a holiday. And it didn't lead into a very good experience. It was always like you travel 2,000 miles only to realize that the place is not accessible or doesn't give you the kind of experience you would look forward to. Or there is a lot of societal stigma attached to, people with disabilities going out and enjoying their lives. Why should they when there is so much trouble outside in the infrastructure and the sensitization of the people? So after these series of back experiences, one argument at a temple turned into a mob fight. And that's when my parents were like, okay, we're not going anywhere, you do whatever you want to do. And that was really the tipping point for me to start looking for solutions, not to find any. Even in countries like US and continents like Europe, there are solutions, but they are pretty much boutique companies started by disabled people themselves and focusing on one single disability. So if the disability decides where you travel, with whom you travel, and how you travel, I think it is, again, a kind of discrimination because you are being segmented again. You are being put into groups, and the disability is deciding that. And it doesn't work for a family like ours because they have two different disabilities. My father is blind, mother is a wheelchair user. So it doesn't really function. And so I was like, okay, maybe someone has to do something and maybe I'm that person to do that. But having said that, and having dabbled into businesses in the past, I knew there won't be a plan B for it. I mean, I have to do it the right way because the earlier things I was doing for fun or just to make money or whatever, but this was something that more like a purpose that you will be creating a lot of hope in people. And you cannot just abandon them in just one go. So I did my homework for 2 to 3 years, sat at airports overnight, counting the number of people coming out because India doesn't have data. And we still don't have data after 7 years of my starting the company. We still don't count how much money is being spent by travelers. We still don't count how much money, how many people with disabilities are really traveling, and what is their accessibility needs based segmentation. We still don't do that. So, and to convince myself whether I can financially, whether I can build it as a financially sustainable business, this data was important. But ironically, you can say, or funnily, there were still not enough people traveling. So even though airports are considered to be more accessible in other places, there was still not enough people. It means fundamentally everything was wrong. And yeah, so in a way, after 2 to 3 years of groundwork, talking to groups of various disabled people and what their expectations were, what their bad experiences were, I reached a point when I was mentally ready to take that plunge. And yes, that's when I resigned from my job at Adobe and started the company. We started off as a travel service provider doing day trips because we had to build trust in people so that they can trust us with longer holidays. And yesterday was the 7th anniversary of the first ever trip. Now we do multiple days, like holidays which last as 45 days or 30 days across the world. Whether people want to travel solo or go on romantic getaways or travel with friends, family, or do adventures like rafting or skiing or hiking. We do all of that for persons with disabilities and their friends and family. Also, we are still the only company in the world which mixes persons with disabilities and the non-disabled to travel together, like inclusive groups. And that has been our goal since day one, to mainstream accessibility and inclusion, because you don't need separate companies for disabled people. Accessibility should be in the DNA of every business for that matter, not just travel. Every business should focus on inclusion at the design level while they're building solutions and products. So that is what now we are doing. We are now venturing also into working with businesses. We had been doing that in the past by developing destinations before anyone could travel to any place, like auditing the places, training the ecosystem staff and stakeholders involved. Now we are doing it in a more formal manner because we realize the gaps are not closing even after all of these years. If people are traveling, but the places are not increasing in terms of accessibility. There is a lot of lack of awareness because it's presumed that accessibility is just wheelchair accessibility, but that is just 10 to 11% of the disabled people. We have other types of accessibility needs, so which are most of the times invisible as well. So we need to focus on those inclusion of those people as well. So now we are creating a global standard for accessibility and inclusion for the hospitality and tourism industry. Its first stakeholder consultation is happening at United Nations Vienna in February, where we have invited people from the disability space and the tourism and hospitality space who have done some good work, and people who are keen to learn but haven't done anything about it on the same table, and build the standards which would lead to a global certification which people can apply for. It's like a golden certificate for, like a Michelin star certificate for accessibility and inclusion for a hospitality and tourism business. So we want to have every hotel, every museum, every restaurant, cafe, bar, or a fort or a palace, or travel companies competing with each other on accessibility. Like instead of stigma, we want to make it as an aspiration that let's do it and harness the big business potential that this has. It's $13.1 trillion of annual disposable income lying untapped. So why not lead to help the industry harness into this opportunity? And yeah, I mean, we started off very humbly as a day travel service provider, moved to like a multiple day holiday provider. And now we want everyone to do it, because the long-term goal is that, travel industry should be inclusive in the first place. And that I want to do in my lifetime.
Wonderful, wonderful. Absolutely, stupendous. And it's, particularly, I liked that, you have inclusive groups. So it is not that it is, exclusively for disabled people only. So that's a plus. And also, I particularly liked the aspiration that every tourism company should aspire to have, a dimension of disability, factored in there. So that's the way to go. Lovely, Neha. Thanks a lot. So we move to Tamanna, and we'll come back to you, Neha, again, more particularly with insights into business, how you developed the business plan, and then how you, scaled the businesses and things like that. But before that, we'll hear Tamanna's story, and my pleasure to introduce Tamanna. So Tamanna Sharma, she is the founder director of Earthlink First Private Limited, an environmental research and development firm in the field of climate action, education, and infrastructure. So Tamanna herself is a design and systems thinker, and she is member Himachal Pradesh's District Environment Plan Committee, which engages in technologically advanced waste management system. And she has a dedication that she wants to solve the waste crisis in the region, totally eliminate it. And she has won many accolades on the way. I am just giving a brief, insight into some of those. And those awards are Indian Responsible Tourism Award, the most recent one in 2022, for conservation by exceptional women leaders, and Women Economic Forum Awards in 2018. She has featured in several leading media, such as Business Insider India, Outlook India, and so on and so forth. So over to you, Tamanna. Let's hear your story.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
It's such a pleasure to be here among amazing women. I always look forward to panels like these because it gives a really good kickstart to the entire year. And since we are still in January, I think this is a good way to start. I am Tamanna. I am the founder and director of Earthlink First. It's a private company that offers services on research and development of ideas, and we make ideas more functional. We create prototypes. We work on the field, back office, everywhere. And there's a work that's spread out right now, but I'll talk a little more about the humble beginnings of the company. Since I've been working on waste management, sustainability, and climate change, I was a climate activist as a young person when I was 21. And soon I realized that I wanted to work on solutions. My background was in journalism that gave me insights into various issues. And for some reason, the smell of waste kind of like lured me into the whole situation. And I realized that that's something, we need to do something about it. It was 2013 when I first thought about the idea of an Earthlink First. It was more of a philosophical question for me about how I would want to live my life and how I would see society live a life which was better. But it wasn't until 2017 that I finally registered Earthlink First as a private company. As opposed to, I could have gone the way of a non-government organization or a non-profit organization. But I held a belief that if you want to change something in the economy, you need to get into that economy. You cannot just be a person on the periphery. You need to be inside it. You need to be the market. So that's when Earthlink First was registered. Interestingly, sustainability consultancy was not really a thing back then. We did not even have a market for sustainable products as much as we have it right now today. 2016 or 17, I had to pick an idea that could be transformed practically and create an impact, and something for which I could get paid for as well. So I started offering services of event management, because I realized that the bulk industry that is events is a bulk industry. They consume a lot of resources for maybe 2 days, 3 days, but the resources get used for months, and then boom, it's gone in 2 days, 3 days. So where is the value in the things that we are creating for an event? So we offered services. I created a very small team. It started with 3 people. Then, for a very long time, we were just 5 people in the team. But we had events going from the first client, and then it went on for 8 cities within the first year. We had 8 metropolitan as well as tier 2 cities. And within 2 years, we were spread across India in 22 locations. These are all the metropolitans. These are major capital cities of India, as well as some villages as well. So once this was achieved and we had made a name for sustainable events, everything was going very well. The consultancy work was going rather well. We, in fact, even did something amazing, which I always wanted to do, was create a sustainability, to create a market of sustainability, of products, of services. Because when you become a private company, you get competitors. You give an idea out to others that it is possible to work like this, to create an impact while also taking care of yourself and sustaining yourself. And we were the pioneers of the market that you see today. Today, you have so many companies who are startups, and in fact, they're mostly led by women. This is something that I realized back in 2018, that the more women I was meeting in the sector, I realized sustainability as a business, as an idea, was being led by women, which was quite amazing to realize at that point. But bang comes the pandemic. All the projects are gone. Suddenly you have no funds, you have no projects. All the corporates are now pushing the funds to emergency. They're pushing sustainability out of the way. So what do? It's fine. I had to let go of my team for a little bit. I gave salaries for 4 or 5 months. And then I told them that we will meet again when things are better. So that's when another form of Earthling First's vision came into being. We started working at grassroots. I designed a project called Project Jalori during the lockdown. I think it was about 4 or 5 months before we were able to leave Delhi and go out to other places. So for a good 4 months, I just sat in a room and I designed a project. And interestingly, because I knew there would be no funds available, and since we are a research and development company, I created an experiment to see if I can take the most difficult terrain and create a model of waste management with the help of local resources. And so Project Jalori became a zero-funded experiment. And I started it during the pandemic. The award that we got from Outlook, the Responsible Tourism Awards under conservation, was for Project Jalori. And currently, Project Jalori is in phase 3, which is completing. And I kid you not, little money from crowdfunding for once or twice of transportation of waste. And sometimes even for my living cost, people helped me. And we were able to do this entire experiment with the help of local resources, using, bits and pieces smartly from, local authorities. Everyone has to work on waste management. Everybody has goals around waste management. Every authority does. It's just that the system has so many gaps that if somebody who can come and look at the system and then fix those gaps, you can actually create an entire system again. So systems thinking and design thinking is something that I've been doing for a very long time. And the pandemic gave me an opportunity to do that on the grassroots. And now we are in a space where Earthling First is advisor to the district, Kullu Manali district, on how to tackle waste. And this year, there are going to be some really awesome projects that are coming about. And I have my team back again. I had to persevere and stay patient for 2 years, let the company stay there, right? Like, not let it go down, not enter into complete bankruptcy, somehow keep going. And then now we are in the space where we now have a team again. And this time I have a super team. So it's made up of psychologists who are working on behavior change. We have people who are working on various sections of environmental engineering. And I think it's going to be really awesome. So that's about it from Earthling First and me, Tamanna.
Wonderful, Tamanna. It was great listening to you. And while I feel that your business is seated around a lot of specialization, isn't it? So you have technical as well as educational, expertise in terms of running your business. Yes. Yeah. So that's a unique advantage. That also is, a unique area to be in. And in both of Neha's and your story, I've seen that your innate purpose, your own purpose and your own ambition. And your own, zeal to do something in a specific area, is converted into a great business. So I'm sure, this is a takeaway for, our audience. And now I will come to Chaya Nanjappa, and my pleasure to introduce you, Chaya. We've met once before. This is just what I mentioned in the beginning. And so Chaya Nanjappa is the founder of brand Nectar Fresh and Naman. A first-generation rural woman entrepreneur, Chaya is scaling the heights of business success today with her team of tribal honey collectors, smallholder farmers, and her rural workforce. She is currently the member president of the Association of Business Women in Commerce and Industry, also known as ABWCI. She is the member of the National Bee Board, amongst many other significant positions in trade and commerce, and also in food processing and research institutions. She has won many accolades over the years, for example, being chosen as the CNBC Woman Entrepreneur in 2014, and most recently winning the prestigious Women Transforming India Award by the Niti Aayog in the year 2021-22. So wonderful to have you, Chaya, and your story is very inspiring, and can't wait to hear it. Please.
Yes, thank you for the introduction, Vinita ji. Namaste, everyone. Like Vinita ji did say, I am Chaya Nanjappa. I'm a rural social entrepreneur. I own brands Nectar Fresh and Naman. Nectar Fresh is considered as one of the most successful units of the Khadi Commission. I'm a first generation entrepreneur, and 14 years back to start a venture as this in rural India without having any mentors or anyone to guide. It was indeed a hard journey, but the satisfaction of making it happen against all odds is enormous. A very big down in my life, I had two options: either depend on my parents or start up something on my own and become independent. And something that I always had in mind is to empower the underprivileged. I chose the second option of being an entrepreneur. And my homeland, Coorg, was once upon a time known for honey. So the only product I knew that I should get into market with was honey. And a woman who didn't even have a confidence to sign a check decided to get into business with a passion that she will sort of get into products that is of the highest quality and take it forward. And that is how Nectar Fresh came into existence. Initially, I started with honey. I felt I could not compete the big players in the industry because they had sufficient funds with them, and I was just coming out of one of the lowest phases in my life to start a business. So that is when I tried to say that I pledged whatever jewelry I had to set up the small Khadi and Village Board backed enterprise Nectar Fresh. With the initial support from my mother. And I thought with my quality, let me get into the market and give stiff competition to foreign brands. To be honest, people laughed at me. They said when the biggest giants in the retail sector could not replace them, how would a Khadi and Village Board, Khadi and the Village commission-backed enterprise from rural India ever compete them? But with determination and an obsession for quality, I entered the toughest market, that is the hospitality sector. I took out the 25, 30-year-old monopoly of foreign brands in India's five-star hotels. I took out Berenberg, Bonmema, and such brands. And when I got in there with mere quality, and then their distributors based out of Dubai, they came down and they said, you just have honey there, whereas the jams, the sauces, they all still belong to our brand. For just one particular product, how could you replace the entire basket? And that is when the purchase heads of top hotels called me and said, well, they do have a point. I requested them for 1 month time and took products from the 6 units of women entrepreneurs, did the necessary changes that had to be required with the right imported essence and more pulp to be added and things like that. And within 1 month, I replaced the entire basket of all the jams, sauces, and honey in the five-star hotels. Today, I supply more than 400 hotels and gives us utmost satisfaction that this social enterprise from rural India has replaced brands like Berenberg and Bonmema in their home countries. I started with honey. Initially, I was not even confident because I didn't come with a business background. Due to circumstances, I had to discontinue my studies very early. And then, I was just wondering, what sort of strategy should I use? Like I said earlier, when we started, we didn't have mentors. We didn't have the importance that is being given today for startups. So everything I learned was from scratch, and it was through trial and error. And I'm happy that, that very hard struggle has paid off. And I feel business ethics is something that has helped the brand grow with consistent quality. Today, Nectar Fresh is one of the largest buyer of tribal honey, and it gives me so much satisfaction that we could transform lives of so many tribals, and the social living has changed. We have given them awareness on the importance of bees for our environment. And there is also what I feel, many of the children from the tribal community, they are having the best of education. And in a very small way, Nectar Fresh has played a very important role in stopping the migration of rural folk to cities. With the growth in honey, we started supporting small farmers because Nectar Fresh, we decided to have a farm gate processing unit, and that's how we backed small farmers to support them because there used to be wastage of their produce. Very quietly, we grew in the private labeling sector. Currently, we pack quite a few brands in jams and private labeling, and that is how we have supported many small farmers, not merely from our district or state, but as far as Kashmir. And with Nectar Fresh's honey and jams, since we give highest importance to quality and ethics in business, I think that, like I said earlier, along with that, what we always have seen to it is how about giving importance to health and wellness. With jams, we started promoting jams without preservative, color, or flavors. Then later, with the help of our R&D institutes, to get more income to our small farmers, we made them grow superfoods. So we buy back all the superfoods that they grow today, and we have also now made a very significant presence in the chia, flax, and seed cocktail market. Similarly, we got into coffee, supporting tribal women they were utilized, and we have started promoting coffee without chicory. With the growth of these products, where I realized our goodwill of 12 to 13 years of hard work and contributing enormously to society in a small way, I would say that I could see the goodwill of that coming out during COVID. Brand Nectar Fresh grew 20% up during COVID. I think that is one of the reasons why I was chosen for the Women Transforming India last year. The reason for our growth is during COVID, people started giving more importance to quality as well as health and wellness products. This helped many small farmers who otherwise would have been affected. With all this, with the growth of the brand, we also got into a kiosk model where we are giving franchisee of the brand to other places, and we are very happy that the coming financial year we would be abroad with our kiosks. I think that's a big leap forward for a Khadi and a Village Board, Khadi and a Village Commission backed enterprise from rural India, where almost all my production staff are uneducated and they have been given skill development to manufacture world-class products. And one more important aspect I would want to share with you all is, during the first wave of COVID, in between handling Nectar Fresh, me and my husband, we decided how we could take forward our vision to support many more tribals. That's when our brand Naman came into existence. I applied for a loan during the first COVID lockdown, and I'm fortunate a bank came forward to back our endeavor, and we have right now constructed one of the biggest outlets for tribal and rural artisan, eco-friendly and sustainable products. I feel this could be one of the biggest outlets to promote eco-friendly and sustainable products for tribal and rural produce in the country. So this is about my journey.
Amazing, amazing, Chayaji. It's amazing to hear your story from you. And, you know, it's pretty unique, you know, with one, it is backed by an uncompromising ethic on quality. So you, and the other is that you've been, you know, an agent in also bringing about a social transformation. So what more could one ask, you know? So you are an entrepreneur, so you've pitched in the economic development. Also, you've not just, you know, done well for yourself, but you've also, you know, partnered the smallholder farmers, the tribal people, and you raised their living standards as well. So amazing, you know, it's absolutely wonderful. So having had this, the first round of your stories, and where, you know, I could pick up that Chayaji has, you know, has built her business around quality. Neha has built her, you know, business, and all of your businesses are global. You know, they're doing so well, and you're all women leaders and, you know, women entrepreneurs who you know, just set yourself free from all the shackles that we're still studying about that women face, you know, in the common lives. So as I was saying, you know, Neha has built her business around her own purpose, and Tamanna has built it around her specialization, her expertise. Now, apart from this, now there is a business side to, you know, the purpose, also quality, and also specialization. So would you let us have a peep, you know, also into the business aspects, you know, what Chayaji mentioned as strategies that you put in place, the pitfalls that you avoided, the challenges you encountered, so that it is also, insightful for our audience and the budding entrepreneurs to hear from you. What can they avoid and how they can, what is that they should avoid and what is it that they should invest in and be steadfast in growing their business. So we start with Neha.
So there are a lot of questions clubbed into one. So yes, in terms of challenges, I think when I started, I started more on passion side, and I was like, okay, I burnt all the bridges. There's no going back, and this is what I'm gonna do, like hell bent like that. But even though you prepare yourself for the worst thing, being an entrepreneur, it will take you much more. It will test you, like life test you, being an entrepreneur test you. So when I went to the hotels, they were like, people with disabilities don't come. Why are you even bothered? I mean, I was like, okay, they don't come because one, you're not accessible. And even if you are accessible, so to say, wheelchair users, you're not telling them that you're accessible. And conventionally, our society is built in a way that people with disabilities just assume this is not for us. And they're conditioned that this is not for us. They accept it and then just lead their life, like in a way that the society asks them to do. Like, इसी में खुश रहो, जो मिल रहा है उससे ज़्यादा कुछ मांगने का ज़रूरत नहीं है, because you're disabled. Even if we are giving you this much, be happy that we are doing you a favor, you're doing that. And disability has always been considered a charity. I mean, they did go hand in hand together, because it has never been related to a business. So another thing was, like, sometimes even if you still send people to hotels, they would not charge the people. They would call and ask me, who is paying for them? Are you paying for them? Or some other charitable donation is paying for them? I'm like, they own their own money. They pay for themselves. You don't have to, link it to charity all the time. And over the years, like, they realized, oh, people with disabilities spend 30% more money than a non-disabled traveler. So this is actually a business case, because they travel with more people or stay longer or travel slow and things like that. But this is where it started. Now they come to us, okay, now we know the business potential. Tell us how to become more accessible. But it has taken these many years. Another challenges in terms of disabled people as well, that they think, because conventionally that has been the ecosystem, you stay in your disabled group. The cross disability awareness doesn't exist. So everyone thinks that my disability is much more challenging than the other disability. So they tend, okay, there is a group trip. How many wheelchair users are there? Because I am a wheelchair user. So they tend to align with their disability themselves, because that is how they have, the society is like. So to break that barrier, like, inclusive trips work in wonderful ways, like creating cross-disability awareness, that why you took a longer trip tour in the monument, because you took an accessible path instead of stairs, right? And why the storyteller was slow, because there was a sign language interpreter going along in parallel. Why we were touching and observing things more deeply, because we have blind people in the group. So, that kind of cross-disability awareness happens. The non-disabled also realize, oh, this person is just like me. They just happen to have a disability. So all of these psychological challenges, I would say, I think they are bigger ones to overcome than any other physical environment or technology challenge. Because once you are in it, you realize the potential of accessibility, then you support it, right? So that is one. And the another has been in terms of...
but Neha, if I may, just intervene a moment here. With disability also comes the notion. It's not just that the disabled will not, because they are not the mainstream of society, in terms of the engine of growth. So in terms of their own employment, in terms of, so first comes the employment and then the disposable income. So we are, riddled with a notion that these people don't have disposable incomes. So are you catering to a group which is already affluent, or is your business model, kind of accessible? What is it? How does another entrepreneur who might be, eyeing this particular sector or this particular space, how does he venture into, or she venture into this, as a market?
Right. So here is the thing. That was my next topic. I mean, that was the challenge I was to talk to you about. Living with a disability is expensive, especially in a country like India, where things are not accessible, where communication is not accessible, information is not accessible, websites, your mobile applications are not accessible, built environment is not accessible. So when we look at that, because the disabled person hasn't been looked upon as a paying customer. So there has been no customer focus on them, because they have to build it for them. But you have to look at it this way, that yes, they have a disposable income. With changing times, India does not have disability benefits like other countries have. So people have to fight and survive and find employment. Like, my parents were both in government jobs, and that time there was no reservation also. So they kind of competed with everything that existed, and still made a life for themselves. But many are not able to. And I realized that fact. So when I started, for the first 3 years, there was no pricing reference for me. So I did it because it was more passion driven. I did it at whatever cost anyone could pay. Right. And then I went broke. So I went bankrupt because my pricing model wasn't right. And there was no similar business before who could have acted as a reference.
Exactly.
So then, yes, the economies of scale hasn't happened in India in terms of accessibility yet. So traveling in India with a disability is expensive. So when I went broke, I had to relook the whole business model, that who is actually the target audience in the disabled people also, that you have to focus on first, not always, but first, to actually build your own financial sustainability. And this is pretty much with every business that starts off as innovative and has no prior reference. You have to start with something which is premium and caters to only a small market which has the capacity to pay. Yes, it is a premium service. It is not cheap, because it takes a lot of work, and the places which are accessible that you can, like the hotels you can stay at, are only 4-star and above. So of course there is a cost associated with it. So that is the reason why, when in this 2 years of gap of all this rethinking and re-strategizing that I did, these are the gaps. It's not affordable. And until and unless more places and more experiences become accessible and inclusive, the economies of scale won't come. The cost will never go down, because it would still stick to people who can afford. So that is the reason why I'm building and trying to work with businesses to help them become accessible, because then, it's like everyone is accessible. So the economies of scales make the cost of traveling goes down. And not everyone can afford a concierge-based travel service like ours. So we have this realization also. And I don't want to run this business. I want every company to do and compete with it. Then only we will reach a place where the affordability comes in. And we also have to create this awareness that when you design for accessibility, it's not just the disabled people that benefit. Everyone benefits. Yes. So the keyboard that you have in your laptops was designed, is a successor to a typewriter, which was designed by a friend of a blind person who wanted to write letters to each other. So that is where accessibility can lead to if it becomes mainstream. We use texting these days. The texting was designed for deaf people. The pinch in and pinch out on your phone was designed for people with low vision. We all use all of these features. That is the magic when we design for accessibility. Every one of us benefits, not just disabled. So, yeah, I mean, even though there have been challenges, I mean, the bigger challenge has been to, one, prove it as a business model, that is profitable. I think we have been able to do that now. And that is why now it's the right time to help businesses when they are convinced that now you need to invest because there is a lot of ROI waiting.
Okay. Good, great. So Tamanna, we are talking about the business models and, strategies for success, some pitfalls that one can avoid. So what are your views?
Business never been there in the family or anyone I knew. So business definitely was a big hiccup, just the business part itself. But the whole idea of Earthling First was to create the market. And when you want to create the market, there are so many spheres to sustainability. And since I knew the answers to a lot of them, it was very difficult to, one, how do you make it business centric? How do you create your targets? What are the pain points that would pay off at this point? And how do you maximize your impact? So it started as a bootstrapped company. I was still, so everything for me is an experiment, everything. I'll start this as a company, okay, as an experiment. Should I, look for investment? Oh, but I'm an OPC, nobody's going to invest in a OPC. Fine, let's just keep it bootstrapped. So the idea was to keep it bootstrapped till the time I did not reach a level where I knew how to scale up, how to take an idea and replicate it in various places. So meanwhile, the strategy was very simple: more quantity, a smaller team, a larger temporary team across India, with a small team in the back office. And, in every city that we worked in, across 22 locations, we had people ranging from 60 as a group to 100. A minimum value of number that we had, but they were temporary employees. So it was easier to work with them through the projects. Now, as a business, this really worked because it helped the company survive for all that while. It was completely bootstrapped. I do remember going into some investment funnels and just coming back with the idea that you have to either become a private limited or you have to show them something that you can scale up to, but you're still making the market. So at that point, that was the strategy, and it worked just fine. It was an old school method of running a business. You earn 2 rupees more today, and then tomorrow you put that 2 rupee back, and you're earning 3 rupees. So slowly and steadily this came about. But very interestingly, this whole business taught me also how, when you're doing work with with people on the ground, you have labor force attached with you. You're paying them, the hardy daily wages. Sometimes you're hiring agencies to do it, and to be able to get more margins, you can sometimes have a negotiation with your agency, reduce your prices and things like that. But there was a small hiccup. The hiccup was that I did come from the development sector as well. So my background was also development sector. And I realized in the first year itself of the company that the people that I was hiring, they were men. And it was just men who were coming to me through agencies, and all the labor force was men. And I questioned this whole idea of why, and I started questioning my agencies. I started questioning my partners across India, and I started pushing. So finally, I made a principle to get 50% participation from women. Now here again, another economics fact about the economics around how women work in India came to me, that the daily wages for women was less than the men. So how do you create a parity there? And so I started, going down to the field myself, getting the labor myself, and then giving them equal pay. Then I started looking for agencies who had the same policy. In fact, there were some agencies who then adopted this policy, and some even started giving us 100% women participation. So I said, no, wait, hold on. Just give me 50%. I don't want men to also miss the chance. And, slowly it became a thing that we would have a project and there are women coming in, and sometimes there are young mothers who are looking for work. So in that scenario, it's a very simple thing. You create a small playpen close to the work environment where the child is safe, the mother can look, and you give them responsibilities according to their condition. So or rather their reality. So if there is a person who's older, that person will get a job of segregating the waste in one spot rather than going to the fields and going here and there in more physical tasks. Mothers would get that kind of support, and this variation went on and on. And I remember even writing this down as a small case study for an organization, and I believe it never got published. But it is the truth is that through the whole idea of not being very hard and fast with just getting more margins, but to seeing where you can create a balance, I was able to create a very interesting experience, and also to understand that it is rather possible to take a business in an old school bootstrap manner and still be able to do some sort of a justice on the way. Now, fortunately, after the pandemic, the strategy has completely taken a turn for very large scale projects. And now the focus, again, because this is not an everyday business, we're not just focusing on one product to sell or one kind of service. It's a varied service. So I will just have to leave the strategy at this, that we are just creating wings now. We're just going to have wings for education, infrastructure, consultancy separately. And the wings will then, take their decisions of how their business is going to be. So that is something that we're that's the mode right now. And if I had to, give a suggestion to anyone, knowing your purpose makes things more, it's easier if you know your purpose, if you know why you're behind a business and why what's in it for you, so you will see a large idea of how it should be. And then, that's how you chart your way to it. It might be slow, it might be fast, but
But I think, Tamanna, what you have also blasted is the notion that, there are certain rules of the game, in business, that only the sharks can, prosper. So I think that's a real, tangible takeaway from your story, that, you've been ethical, you've experimented, and your idea of bringing in women and then also facilitating that they are able to do their job, is also compassion. And so I think, I may not be too far off the track when I say that having more women in the entrepreneurial space and in the business space, I think will bring more justice and, things that we are vying for, things that we are clamoring for, and we're talking so loud about. They themselves, I think we will allow them to seep in very naturally into the space, things like justice, social justice, things like ethics, things like compassion, things like care, because these also define women, right? So very naturally, we, open our gates to these values to seep into the business space. And I think that will be a wonderful progression, with business, with women entrepreneurs. And in the process, I'm sure we will empower women, as a collective. Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful, Tamanna. Amazing. So, Chayaji, with you, it's all grit and determination, and it's also you've dabbled into something which is, a product, and it is very difficult because it is very competitive, and you have to continually, you have to progress and advance in terms of, diversifying or whatever, so. What is your business model, and what has kept you afloat and growing, over the years?
Well, Vinita ji, what happens is, as initially when you try to sustain your business, especially in rural India. Why I repeatedly say is, there is a vast difference when you do a business in urban areas as well as when you compare it to rural India, because currently for me, logistic issues are really a challenge. See, when I transport it across Bharat, I have to meet my deadline, and I come from rural area where you have to see that the product reaches there on time. But we could, over a period of time, overcome that challenge because of our close association over a period of time with a few organizations who started helping us out with that issue. But other than, say, logistics, there is a lot of challenge like, say, marketing. Marketing in rural India is very, very hard, because in urban areas, for you to access markets are much more easier. So, and scaling up is not that a major issue. And for us, raw material procurement, even whatever you need to pack it, be it the carton boxes or whatever produce you need, or I mean, whatever you need as a packaging material, it also has to come from somewhere out. So all this actually somewhere slows down our scaling up process, because you have to put double the effort, double the time, and you have to plan it meticulously, because you eventually have to look into the costing also. But where I took this challenge to the next level was, initially when I was sustaining myself, it took me 4 to 5 years to sustain my business. Initially, I used to feel very bad that I was not fortunate. Yes, one more challenge we entrepreneurs in rural India have is awareness of schemes and subsidies. Once you have awareness, then for you to get it is another major challenge. Midway, you let go, you decide, okay, it's better to work hard and give your 100% rather running after this subsidy. So all these challenges are a lot. So for sustaining a business takes a bit of time, but once you sustain it, once you face all the challenges, today I don't have a single regret. I'm very happy for the 2 lakh I got from the Khadi Commission. I'm very grateful that I got it back then. So, but what happens once you sustain going through all these challenges, scaling up becomes easier for you. When you have always adhered to the best of standards, when a small social enterprise empowering the tribals and the rural folk with an entire team of uneducated staff have been trained to manufacture such world-class products, going to the next level becomes much easier. Then what happens later is that when I always thought, okay, when I started with honey, it was a product connected to health and wellness. So all a product should be associated with that. Today, be it jams without preservative, color, or flavor, or coffee without chicory, or superfoods like chia, flax, and seed cocktail, or I mean, we have also gotten to, during COVID, we got into dry fruits again from small farmers, which are by default organic, apple cider, mother vinegar, all these products. Right now, we are getting curcumin from the Northeast, moringa powder, all these products that we are related or associated with is health and wellness. So that particular aspect of maintaining a consistent quality and packing for some of the biggest names, we need to be innovative with our way of thinking. If I had got into the retail space like all others did, and that would have been a challenge for me to scale up, because there are so many of them there. Instead, I thought, let me adhere to the stringent quality requirements of the high-end market or the pharma chains, where there are hardly any competitors. And they will not have 200 vendors. See, they are obsessed that the specification has to be met. That is where I made an entry. So I think your innovation helps, or I'm sorry, not merely your innovation, but a different way of thinking. That helps. That helps. So currently I pack some of the biggest brands in the country. I could be the largest supplier to the Ayurveda and pharma sector. And today I go to the gourmet stores. And even now, when we have that production capacity to double today, I think we can go up to 300, 400 tons a month. I'm very cautious about our growth, slow and steady, and eventually see that the impact also happens there on the ground and we grow well. So that is how all the products also came by, and we planned it meticulously to what it is today. And with Naman, the challenges I faced, I just can't express into words, because that's the first, could be the first social venture in Atmanirbhar Bharat. Our Prime Minister does so much for Nari Shakti or Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India, any ventures of us, but local representatives can be a nightmare. When I wrote to the PMO, it was the PMO that intervened. So though it is delayed for 17 months and I pay 1.5 lakh interest rate for the loan that I took because of the harassment of the local representatives, especially because they, I don't know how much of it is in urban India, but in rural India, women, it is not very easy. But we have that inner strength in us to face all challenges and make it happen, and we will.
Very inspiring, Chayaji, very inspiring. And I'm sure, as you said, the innate strength is visible in all three of you, and that die-hard spirit, is shining through. So this is the most, we've come and maintained the time very well, and we can take a few questions. So if Uma, if we could know if we have questions.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we are in time.
Yes, absolutely. I'm
take a few questions.
Yes, we're just quickly checking.
Yes. But personally, I would have also asked, where are you, all three of you, you are headed? So what's there in the future? If you could share a vision of the future with us. Neha, Tamanna, Chaya.
I'd like to share like a little tagline that I have for Earthling First. To be able to think about future rather, is we need to have a better today to have a sustainable future.
Okay.
And this is exactly the kind of, I'm not even looking at the future at the moment. I mean, there are visions for it, but it's today, I think there are so many crises going on. And some of the answers are very basic. So makes you kind of frustrated at times that, this is a very simple answer to this. And I'm sure Neha also feels the same about the work that she does. And Chaya ma'am also feels the same when, certain kind of things come in your way. And these are the basic things. And as women, it just feels like, I was reading somewhere that single person enterprises are doing far better in terms of women participation in this economy. And it comes to me as a question that, is it not it's basic to form a private company and have partners, but we're still finding it a little hard to have a say in a partnership like that. So we're still single person enterprises. And I think it's high time we have accessibility. It's high time we have some of these basics sorted. Then I think the vision looks amazing. We just need to get these basics, I think, sorted, and it's high time. 2023.
So I think what you're pointing towards is more trust, in businesses which are run by women, to encourage others, or in fact, even trust and join as partners. Otherwise, it's like the women are wedded to businesses. Yes.
Okay, there are a few questions in the chat box, if I may read,
Yes.
Vinita.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so one is to Chaya ji particularly, where we have a question saying that how to take care of inventory when starting new businesses.
Well, I would want to say that be cautious on what you stock up in your inventory. Be very careful on that, because it's always better to dream small than sustain your business and then scale up. All of us make mistakes, but start very small. So it's only, I feel, with, like I said earlier, with trial and error, and you learn your lessons, and then you could pick up things more, or you can, bring an innovation, or you could, diversify. And even that's where I think you can have a hold on your inventory. Otherwise, you are in for big trouble. And nowadays, at least awareness is there. Earlier, when we started, that was one of the, I think, major challenge I faced. But I later was lucky enough to dispose it off to other smaller packers.
Thank you so much. Now, also, next question is, what are the 5 steps to keep in mind? The first 5 steps to keep in mind to become an entrepreneur. Any of you could take that question.
Yeah, so I think I'll take that up. So I think the first 5 steps to being an entrepreneur is find a problem around you and solve it. Like, there are so many problems around us and they need solutions, like really simple solutions, as Tamanna said, like the beauty lies in simplicity. So someone has to just come forward and create a solution for that, because so many problems need it and we all have the capacity to solve it. So that's one. Second, identify why you are the best person to solve that. What is your leverage? What makes you the best person to solve that problem that you have seen? 3, do not listen to people, not even your parents or your family, if they tell you that you can't do this, or this is not possible, or be safe, or, money is important, blah, blah, blah. All of that works, but you have to believe in yourself, because as an entrepreneur, only you know what you have the capacity to build and where you can build a company and where you can take it. 4, financial sustainability. I mean, being a good person, passion and all is important, but it will lead you to bankruptcy if you don't focus on financial sustainability. Profitability has to be the first thing right from the start on your mind, that how will you make money? And that might mean taking tough decisions at time, like I did, to focus, make it expensive, because there was no other way. Otherwise, Planetable wouldn't have survived. So think of the long-term perspective. The 5th is stick to your why, because that is what will help you survive the tough days when there's no hope and you feel all battered up. Your why will help you survive and continue the journey. And yeah, that's like 5.
Thank you so much, Neha, for answering that. Also, another question is that which type of enterprise is best for profit for social enterprises?
I think I'll answer that question because I heard the same. Somebody asked the same question in a women entrepreneur session 3 years back. For profit or social? So somebody said, this mentor said, that every organization and every enterprise is social by default, because you are taking care of people, you're hiring people, you're taking care of livelihoods. So technically, every enterprise is social. But yes, if you want to, it's just a matter of registration also. Paperwork is different for a social enterprise. You have to do a little more paperwork for a social enterprise, and it's rather easier to make a profit private company. Or an OPC rather, is very easy to make. So they're just technical differences. You can earn profit in both. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. There's one more question which says, I come from a remote part of the country and I want to start, but I don't know how to get started in that area. So what do I do?
Maybe I shall take this
Please
question.
do.
But yeah, I would say that kindly look into a produce that is available in that area until you could sustain your business. Like if you were to, if your product requires a raw material that is not locally available, then your business idea may not be viable. So it is always better to start with a product. I don't know from which area or which place you come from, but first start a business where raw material availability is feasible for you and it is cost effective for you. That is what I would suggest.
Wonderful. There's also one question, probably we'll just take two more questions before we wrap up. One question which says that how do you manage your investment in the very initial part of, setting up your business?
Well, each one of us have our own, I would say, ideas or the way we would want to go with it. Like I said earlier, I didn't even think twice to pledge my jewelry because, to be very honest, I don't know whether you're from rural India. Banks are not very positive about giving loans to women, especially. But now I think they have changed their mindset. Relying on the banks would be a better option, is my personal opinion.
Thank you so much. And now with that, the last... Sorry, please do.
It's because investment is such an interesting word. Investment should always, I believe, should go in rotation. It shouldn't just be you spending, and then, at the end of the day, nothing. So there's a major chunk that goes into your expenditure, but then a certain amount should always go in rotation for sure.
I would also add to that, just 2 minutes. I think it depends upon the type of business that you have. Because if you are a product business, you would need a lot of capital to start, to either build an inventory or build the product. If it's a technology innovation, like a tangible product, it would take money in the start. But if you're a services business, you can actually pretty much start with no money and build it, generate money slowly and then put it back into the company and then slowly grow. And it really depends upon the kind of business you have and what access to resources you have. Sometimes, friends and family could be your first investor if you have a good financial background around. But sometimes some people might not have. Like I put in all my savings, what I had of the working. So it really depends. And when you get broke, there would be kindness of people also who will help you. So yeah, and sometimes some businesses are more attractive to investors, so then it's easy to raise money for them. And I think, but as women, I think, and that too, solo entrepreneurs in India, no, it's not very positive, honestly.
Thank you so much. The last question, we've been asked that what are some of your suggestions, thoughts on creating entrepreneurs in our country if we are taking it as one of our CSR initiatives? So if a company is setting up a CSR initiative and as part of their cause want to, create entrepreneurs in the country, so what would be your suggestions to a company wanting to do that?
I think we should start where in school, because that is where we lack. We in our education system, we are just creating employable employees, who can be trained to do the same kind of task. Entrepreneurs, on the say, are the misfits who sit at the back and don't follow any rules and create their own rules and their systems. So I think in the schools only, we should be more open about creating these entrepreneur fairs or startup competitions kind of things, wherein people can be at least exposed that what is possible. If they see a small problem around, a child might see a waste problem around in their own neighborhood, and they might be the person to lead that change. That is entrepreneurial. Anything, it's not about generating money. It could be really anything. And similarly for adults, I mean, I think it's the support of the family system and people around you. Otherwise, only few who can rebel can become entrepreneurs. But most of the dreams of being an entrepreneur, if you're not a rebel and you just say no to people whosoever is telling you anything, they just give up on their dreams. Most people give up on their dreams because people just talk them into be safe. And salary is the biggest addiction that you can have in your life. So I think once we change the mindset around what entrepreneurship is and how it can actually change our society for the better, any big thing that has happened in the world has happened because of the power of entrepreneurship, because of the power of businesses. I mean, governments can only do so much. It is about the businesses, and capitalism actually is a big social change maker. If you do it right, it has the power, it has the money, it has the influence to actually build better societies for all of us, which are inclusive, of course.
Absolutely. Sorry, there's one more additional question which I thought I'll take and I'll definitely close at this, which is an entrepreneur asking that I sell clay products and I have my clients, but how do I register and establish my brand?
Has she already started a product, a brand?
Yeah, so it says that I sell clay products, and she or he does have the clients, but how do I register? I think like a formal setting up of enterprise and establish a brand.
That's very easy to do, actually. You could just go to your district industries commission there locally, and the formalities would take just a few minutes to have a Udyog Aadhaar, and they would also let you know about the schemes or subsidies that you could capitalize, and you're in a good business actually, because that has a potential to scale. You could scale it up to, and you just have to visit your local DIC. The rest you could do according to their guidance, which is not much of a difficult task.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think with that, we come to a close. So Vinita, I would hand over the session back to you. But I want to take this opportunity to thank all our esteemed speakers who joined us today on the kickstart of the Jan Bhagidari events. And I think we really started with a wonderful discussion, and really women entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurship is really one of the key discussions of the G20 Empower, and otherwise also of our country. And the huge contribution that all our women entrepreneurs do, not only to the Indian economy, but also to the society, to the house, to everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. And over to you, Vinita. Thank you.
Well, I also have the pleasant duty to, thank each one of our lovely and wonderful and amazing women entrepreneurs. So it was fantastic, talking to each one of you and getting insights, so when Neha speaks about the madness and, not giving up on dreams and working towards a purpose, and when Tamanna says that you really have to, she brings in a compassion, and when Chaya ji, she's a stickler on quality. It's very inspiring, and when Neha says that, you've got to be a rebel, so it stirs something within you. So it's amazing. Not only, so I love the moderating part, but also, I'm getting a lot of insights, and, it inspires you. And, and with women entrepreneurs, I'm sure it's going to be a game changer. As we have, noticed along the way, each one of the, woman entrepreneur that we've talked to about, she's talked about ethics, she's talked about compassion, she's talked about not giving up, she's talked about determination, she's talking about and appealing to the society in terms of, a fairer, and a more level playing field. And I think these things are very important to put on the table and communicate widely. And with this, and I congratulate Vicky also that, you're bringing together all of these thoughts and inspiring so many of us. So wonderful. It was a pleasure having all of you. I thank you all again and hope to meet you someday in person. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
उसके स्नेहा को रखूँ